The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, May 28th, episode 111. Wow. Here on NOK Network, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. Shout out to the guys in Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario for the awesome track originally recorded by the Moody Blues, with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my amazing joint host, Tarra Simpson, and one and only Bufo Alvarius, who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tarra.
Hello, Hobbies. Hello, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He's our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And while that sounds like fun, park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick that toad.
Ha ha ha, don't lick the toad. Don't lick the toad.
Don't lick the toad, man.
Oh, yeah. I'll get the toad down in a second. I hit the wrong button, but we have an exciting week of news, or an exciting night of news stories and today. And remember, if you remember last week, we left where we were going to search for more mescaline and the San Pedro cactus information. And Bufo has he did that.
He did. I saw that. I was so stoked to see these articles this week. Mescaline is something that we haven't really touched as much on this show, but we know that it's out there, and we do know that it has benefits, obviously, because it's being used and has been used for a long time. So stoked for this article.
So we're going to have two articles. First, we're going to explain what mescaline is. The second article would be that if after hearing this, and you are interested in exploring the realm of microdosing, then we will we will read a story to give you information how to safely do that.
Absolutely. Very cool.
So this article is brought from tripsitters.com, and it's called Mescaline, Peyote, San Pedro, and Peruvian Torch Cactus. Explore what makes mescaline one of the most underrated psychedelics of all time. And this was written by Justin Cook.
So, mescaline is a highly underrated psychedelic. The mescaline experience isn't going to inject you into some other dimensions like ayahuasca or DMT, and it's unlikely to give you deep insight into the human connection or condition, but it does have a tendency to show you that after all is said and done, life is, its essence is good. This interesting psychedelic has a lot of overlap with LSD and psilocybin, but it is much more social. Instead of making you feel isolated or introverted, it brings a sense of confidence and extroversion. Mescaline can bring a sense of energy and euphoria, expands your sense of empathy with the world around you, and makes you want to talk with friends or go exploring. Here we'll cover everything you need to know about mescaline and the three most prominent sources: peyote, San Pedro, and Peruvian torch cactus.
So this must be the scientific module, like molecule.
It is. Yeah.
So what is mescaline? Mescaline is a naturally occurring psychedelic found in several species of cacti, all of which are native to North America. The effects of mescaline are very comparable to LSD or magic mushrooms, but with some differences. The main difference is the sociability aspect of mescaline. It tends to make people more confident, energetic, and talkative. Despite having strong cartoonesque visuals, the mind remains clear and composed. Ooh. Mescaline has a long history of use by Native Americans in the United States and Mexico as a form of sacrament. These groups have been granted religious access to mescaline containing cacti under the 1994 American Indian Religious Freedom Act, and that's ARFA. Aldous Huxley brought this substance to the mainstream public through his iconic book, The Doors of Perception, which was based mainly on his experience with mescaline. Mescaline is also being explored in potential applications in psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. Level of risk, very low. Ooh. Button cactus, peyote, Peruvian torch is the street names. It will give you stomach discomfort. So is that puking?
It could be puking, could be pooping.
10 to 12 hours is the effect, and legality is a religious exception, illegal.
Very cool. Peyote cactus. So this is one of the sources of mescaline. Peyote is a species of cactus found in the southern United States and Mexico. It's a very unassuming cactus. It's small, has no spines, and doesn't grow much larger than a pincushion. A single peyote cactus is often referred to as a button. Despite its humble appearance, the peyote cactus contains the highest concentration of mescaline of any other cactuses at around 3 to 6% of the dried weight. Peyote grows exceptionally slow, taking up to 15 years to reach maturity. The average user requires several buttons of peyote cactus for a single dose. An experienced peyote user may take as many as 15 or 20 buttons at a time. Wow.
San Pedro cactus. San Pedro cactus is a native to the mountainous regions of South America. Found growing as high as 3,000 meters in elevation in the Andes Mountains. The psychoactive species of cacti many times larger than peyote and offers a more sustainable source of mescaline result. It contains a lower concentration of mescaline at around 4.5 of the dried weight, but dramatically larger size of the plant provides more mescaline overall. San Pedro cactus can grow up to 12 meters, which is 40 feet tall.
Wow. So, Peruvian torch. This cactus is a close relative of San Pedro cactus. It grows much faster than San Pedro and peyote, but produces much lower mescaline content, just 0.24% of the dried weight. This means the dose of raw cactus is too high to use the Peruvian torch on its own. However, it does offer a more sustainable source of mescaline concentrate.
So there's other sources of mescaline. There are 3 pure forms of mescaline available: free base mescaline, mescaline sulfate, and mescaline hydrochloride. Mescaline was first synthesized by 1919 by Ernest Bach, a famous Austrian chemist who studied plant extracts. Of the 120 compounds Spath and his team discovered, mescaline was by far the most impactful. In 1960s, 70s, a man named Alexander Shulgin used mescaline as the starting point for a starting point
to make dozens
of other psychoactive substances, including MDMA. He's been dubbed the grandfather of psychedelics for his role in developing and documenting well over 200 psychoactive substances, many of which were derived from mescaline. Shulgin published his work in 2 volumes. Tryptamine-based psychoactive based on psilocybin and LSD, which is fickle, and fickle, which is phenethylamine-based psychoactive based on mescaline. Wow.
Wow. And then there's like a huge list of mescaline-inspired psychoactive substances. So you can scroll through that list on your own. That's an awful lot of them.
Right. And MDMA was in there.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. So there is mescaline in MDMA. Interesting. What's the dose of mescaline? So for like peyote, a microdose is 1 gram. So standard psychoactive dose is 5 to 15 grams. So I would assume they're talking dry weight of the cactus.
Yeah.
As being dose. San Pedro, you need for a microdose 1 to 2 grams, or a psychoactive is 8 to 20 grams. Peruvian torch 5 to 10, and again 30 to 50. So obviously less pure, right? Because you need a lot more. That's a lot. 50 grams is a lot.
Yeah. Even the cactus. I remember my buddy telling me that you had to take like 10 to 11 grams to get a good high.
Right. Yeah. And then pure mescaline 10 to 40 milligrams, or what they class as 200 milligrams. So microdoses. Microdoses involves using sub-psychoactive doses of a substance. This dose doesn't make you feel high. It just has a subtle impact on cognition. The suggested benefits of microdosing mescaline are more creativity, improvements in memory and relational skills, better focus and concentration, more mental and physical energy, improvement in mood, a higher level of empathy towards others, which I think is so important in today's society. We so lack that. The idea of microdosing is to take these in low doses regularly over several weeks or months. The improvement from microdosing happens gradually over time. The longer you take the mescaline, the greater the improvement, in theory at least. There have not been a lot of official studies to explore the long-term benefits of microdosing mescaline. Mescaline can be stimulating even in low doses, so it's recommended that you take your dose in the morning. This will ensure enough time for it to wear off by the time you go to bed. There are a few different philosophies regarding schedules, but the most common is to take 1 dose of mescaline every 3 days. So 1 day on, 2 days off.
How much do I take for a microdose of mescaline? We'll cover that in the next article.
Yeah.
So the standard psychoactive dose. The standard psychoactive dose of mescaline is between 200 to 400 milligrams. At this dose, you experience full psychoactive effect of mescaline that includes visual and auditory hallucinations, changing the perception of time, inhibition of the default mode network, an expanded sense of empathy and openness. This dose is well within the safe region of using mescaline and is unlikely to lead to any serious side effects. Reaching this dose with dry cactus requires several grams at a time, which can irritate the stomach. The most common side effect of the psychoactive mescaline is stomach discomfort caused by cactus itself rather than the mescaline. You can avoid this side effect by drinking a ginger tea before taking the cactus.
Interesting. What does a mescaline trip feel like? The effects of mescaline are similar to LSD and magic mushrooms, but with some differences. Mescaline is a social psychedelic, which means it's much more likely to make you feel conversational, confident, and energized. In comparison, magic mushrooms are introverted psychedelics. They encourage the user to go off and be alone. LSD is somewhere in the middle, sometimes making the user more social, other times making them more introverted. People who have used mescaline often described it as creating almost cartoon-like hallucinations while maintaining complete mental clarity. You can have a perfectly normal conversation under the effects of mescaline, and the entire trip remains based on reality as opposed to ayahuasca, DMT, or salvia. Mescaline won't make you see things that isn't there. It just makes the objects there look different. Interesting. Common experiences from mescaline include a desire to be with friends and family, a feeling of confidence, feeling of empathy for the world around you, cartoon-like hallucinations, distorted perception of time, increased energy levels, paranoia, or anxiety.
So how strong is mescaline versus other psychedelics? Mescaline is the weakest of classical psychedelics. You need around 200 milligrams of mescaline to achieve standard psychedelic dose. Compared this to LSD, 60 micrograms, psilocybin, 10 milligrams, DMT, 20 milligrams, or salvinorin is 200 micrograms. The effects of mescaline are also much milder than other psychedelics. You're not going to meet any aliens or experience separation from ego while using mescaline. Mescaline versus LSD and shrooms. Mescaline is most comparable to LSD and shrooms. It has lots of similarity in terms of the visuals brought by these substances. The potency of the psychedelics is very different, with mescaline being the weakest overall. Psilocybin is roughly 10 times as strong as mescaline, and LSD around 1,000 times as strong. It is also common to see familiar shape and patterns in different textures such as dirt, wallpaper, and other patterns. Much like finding shapes in the clouds, you may see what happens to be faces, animals, or letters appearing in objects in your environment. The main differentiator with mescaline is that it is considered a social psychedelic. Some even consider it a party drug. While it's not the type of substance you take for a night out at the club, it's popular in a group setting, on a camping trip, or a bonfire. It promotes a feeling of self-confidence and extroversion. Mescaline makes you want to talk to people, as opposed to magic mushrooms that tend to have the opposite effects, promoting you to separate from the group to be alone with your thoughts.
Right. Mescaline versus DMT. Mescaline versus DMT are very different. DMT has a strong dissociative effect, leading to a dissolution of sense of self or ego. Even small doses of DMT are powerfully psychoactive and can warp our interpretation of the world around us. Mescaline doesn't do this. You remain completely in the real world. The visuals from DMT are often also more geometric than more fluid visuals experienced by mescaline. Of course, there's exception to this, and some people report geometric visuals on mescaline. Mescaline versus ketamine. There's an overlap in the effects of ketamine and mescaline. Both substances are phenethylamine-based psychedelics. This means both substances have similar molecule structures and therefore use similar mechanisms to produce their psychoactive effects. Many other phenethylamine psychedelics share this effect, including DXM, PCP, 2CB, 2CE, and MDMA. While the mechanism of action is similar, mescaline and ketamine have very different effects. Ketamine and most of the other synthetic phenethylamine Drugs have a strong dissociative effect, which is something not commonly experienced while under the effects of mescaline.
How to make mescaline? There are two primary forms of mescaline: raw cactus and pure synthetic mescaline powder. Raw cactus is preferred and tends to produce smoother experience. However, you need to consume a lot of cactus to reach the psychoactive dose. Eating a lot of cacti can be tricky. It tastes horrible and can cause severe stomach discomfort. The synthetic powder requires a much smaller dose and is easily mixed into juice or water to mask the taste. You can take the mescaline powder as a capsule, the most common method. The toss and wash method. This is the most common method for eating raw mescaline cactus. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not going to be enjoyable. It's going to be bitter, and there's going to be a lot of it. The best way to do it is rip off the Band-Aid and get it over with quickly rather than drawing it out. To do the toss and wash method, add the desired dose of peyote, San Pedro, or Peruvian torch to a glass of water. Allow the powder or small cacti chunks to soak up some water before knocking it back. Keep some juice nearby to help wash it down. Yeah. Pineapple juice works great for hiding the flavor.
Hilarious. Capsules are the most common form of using mescaline, but it only works with concentrated or synthetic mescaline. The raw cactus requires far too much to reasonably take in capsule form. You'd need to swallow 20 or 30 capsules just to hit the psychoactive dose. Make sure you know how much mescaline is included in each capsule and test a sample before you start. The most dangerous part of using synthetic mescaline isn't the mescaline itself. It's the risk of accidentally consuming capsules that have been adulterated with other more harmful substances such as MBOME, smoked. This is the more traditional method of using mescaline, but rarely practiced today. Dried peyote or San Pedro cactus are ground up and mixed with tobacco. This can be smoked for a mild psychoactive effect. Traditionally, tobacco is considered a useful teacher plant. It's often combined with psychedelics during ceremonial use to help guide the user through their trip safely. Unfortunately, a lot of the mescaline is destroyed during the combustion process, so it's not an efficient way of using.
Mescaline tea can also be made from raw peyote or San Pedro cactus. To make the tea, add a few pieces of cacti to a pot of water and gently boil for 10 minutes. The heat may damage a lot of the mescaline prepared this way, so it's not going to be as efficient as heating the raw powder or eating the raw powder directly, the toss and wash method, but it makes much easier to consume. You can also add other herbs to the tea with help with digestive side effects such as ginger or peppermint. So how does mescaline work? It binds to several different types of receptors in the human brain to produce its effects. Most of the psychoactive effect comes from its ability to activate the 5-H2A and have 5-2H2C serotonin receptors, which is the same mechanism of action used by other psychedelics, including DMT, LSD, and psilocybin. Receptors affected by mescaline include inhibit 6-7. Inhibits the alpha-1, stimulates the 5 serotonin receptors, stimulates the 5-H2A receptor, the 5-2HC receptor, and stimulates the Tarra receptors.
Is mescaline safe? Mescaline poses little risk to the body. While there are side effects, there has never been any reported deaths caused by mescaline directly. The LD50 of mescaline in humans is reported to be approximately 880 milligrams per kilogram. That's an extremely high dose. The average size human, 140 pounds, would need nearly 60,000 milligrams of mescaline. This is about 300 times the standard psychoactive dose. So yeah, you could never eat that much raw cactus. That's insane. That's crazy. A 12-year review of the California Poison Control Database only found 31 cases of mescaline poisoning from 1997 to 2008. Of these 31 cases, none were lethal or produced any life-threatening side effects. It's even a bit debatable that some of these people could have been considered poisoning. For example, vomiting was only reported in one patient. The most common side effect was agitation and tachycardia, which is rapid heart rate. Psychologically, there are some other risks to using mescaline, potentially leading to ego death, and side effects like paranoia and anxiety could cause other mental health effects. However, this is just a theory. In several studies that have already been published that psychedelics, including mescaline, have a very low risk of causing mental health disorders even after a bad trip. In fact, the study cited the above found a lower incidence of mental health disorders in people who have used psychedelics. Nevertheless, it's important to follow the responsible use of psychedelics guidelines when using any psychoactive substance. The intention you have going into the experience plays a major role in whether the substance will be helpful or harmful. So again, they went over the side effects there: agitation, anxiety, insomnia, nausea, vomiting, paranoia, and tachycardia. And I wonder if the tachycardia is part of the anxiety, right? Because anxiety makes our heart flutter, right?
That's what I would get. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you search mescaline addiction, you'll find a variety of rehab centers highlighting the addictive nature of psychoactive cacti, but there's zero evidence to support this idea. The fact is that most classical psychedelics, LSD, magic mushrooms, DMT, mescaline is not addictive. Surveys exploring the illicit use of peyote report the average illicit user of psychoactive cacti uses the drug an average of two times per lifetime, which is a far cry from being a drug of abuse. On the contrary, mescaline has been shown to offer powerful anti-addictive properties. It's one of the best candidates currently being explored as a solution to the widespread drug addiction epidemic. It stands tall among such psychedelics as ayahuasca, psilocybin, and LSD as potential treatments for addiction. When to avoid mescaline. Mescaline isn't safe for everybody. If you close a family member have been diagnosed with psychiatric disorders like schizophrenia or psychosis, it may not be safe to use mescaline or any psychedelics. Mescaline is not recommended for anybody with gut sensitive as the cacti already tend to irrigate the digestive tract. People using antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, blood pressure medication meds, heart medications, or statin drugs are starting drugs.
Yep.
Also avoid mescaline. Wow.
Yeah. Is mescaline legal? Mescaline and the cacti that produce it are illegal in most parts of the world, with a few exceptions. In Canada, Germany, and New Zealand, psychoactive cacti are legal to own as an ornamental plant. Mescaline and prepared psychoactive cactus remain illegal. In the United States, peyote and San Pedro are permitted for religious use by Native Americans. Some parts of the US have recently moved to decriminalize natural psychedelics. In the UK, Ukraine, and Thailand, psychoactive cacti have been excluded from banned lists of substances. So,
right.
How long does mescaline stay in the body? I think that's pretty important. Mescaline can be detected in the urine for up to 3 days, but it remains detectable in the hair samples for up to 90. Blood tests can only detect mescaline within 24 hours of use, and saliva for up to 10 days, but usually less than 3. That's interesting.
Right. And you can order live peyote. Can you order live peyote or San Pedro cactus? It's illegal to order peyote, San Pedro, and Peruvian torch cacti as decorative plants in some countries, including the U.S., Canada, and Germany, Ukraine, and New Zealand. It's legal to order. So yeah, it's legal to order that. You can sometimes find these cactuses in nurseries in the U.S., but they won't be labeled as San Pedros. You can identify them by tiny spines along the few verticals and pattern on the smooth columns. Cactus grow relatively quickly for a cactus. It can take several months for the seed to sprout, but most growers propagate new plants from cuttings instead, which grow into large plants in just a few years. Expect to pay upwards of $50 per plant, and it will take 2 to 5 years for them to grow large enough to harvest, and which is 4 feet. Usually, Pedro will max out around 7 feet in height before being knocked over under their weight. Cut and propagate for the new plants and dry the rest. Wow.
Wow. Is mescaline and mezcal the same thing? No, mescaline is sometimes confused with an alcohol spirit called mezcal, but obviously one's an alcohol, one's not. So just so you know, it's not the same thing. Why is mescaline so underrated as a psychedelic? Mescaline is not common among the general public, but for those who have used it, it often returns to mescaline after trying other psychedelics. Let's consider the stereotypical mescaline user, the old rebellious hippie. They're usually pretty wise and have found some degree of success in both business and family life, and they're now enjoying their old age with plenty of travel and healthy social lives. They've done it all, and they've come full circle back to mescaline in their old age. The mescaline experience can be insightful, but the primary underpinning of this compound is that it's grounding. It brings you to the present moment and shows you just how much fun it is to be alive. That's cool. I hope when I'm that old, I'm doing mescaline.
So it's Huachuma, the same as San Pedro. It's Huachuma is the local name for the San Pedro cactus. So that must be the name that it must be under.
Yeah.
Another religious of the Andes Mountains where it grows naturally. Huh. So yeah, you want to read the last of the future?
Yeah. What does the future of mescaline look like? It's likely the popularity of mescaline will continue to increase over the coming years behind DMT, LSD, and magic mushrooms. As the use of psychedelics becomes less taboo, people will undoubtedly start to explore some of the more unconventional psychedelics, if you can even call mescaline unconventional. This underrated psychedelic will likely be limited in the marketplace, even as laws begin to loosen. Synthetic mescaline is available, but will never be held in the same regard as raw psychoactive cacti, which is simply too expensive and difficult to produce and compete with LSD and magic mushrooms. Mescaline will always be more expensive and harder to find. Absolutely. When it takes 15 years to grow a button and you need 5 buttons minimum, I can see that.
Right. Yeah. No, I know a guy that's got I want to say about 3 to 5 years worth of cactuses growing.
Right.
And he's constantly re-adding for the next cycle.
Yeah.
So this next article is for same as the tripsitter.com, from cacti to capsules, how to safely microdose mescaline. Now that you know what it is and now you want to take it. We know what larger amounts of mescaline do. Now let's look at the mighty effects of microdoses. And this is written by J. Gordon Curtis.
The practice of microdosing has taken the world by storm, and for good reason. Research is limited, but anecdotal evidence overwhelmingly supports the benefit of taking small doses of mescaline, the active ingredient in the peyote and San Pedro cacti. The most common substance for microdosing are LSD and psilocybin. Mescaline is underrated, but offers virtually identical benefits, plus a few others, like bolstering empathy and connection with others and achieving deeper states of meditation and self-awareness. So, what's involved with microdosing mescaline? Let's dive into the nuances of this amazing substance. We'll cover the current research, what the current research says, and what the alleged benefits are, and what dose constitutes a microdose, what risks to be aware of, and how mescaline compares to LSD or magic mushrooms.
Wow. So microdosing mescaline, psychedelic microdosing involves taking doses of psychoactive drugs so small you wouldn't feel their effects. Instead of launching yourself into a full-blown psychedelic experience, the purpose is to produce a small cognitive change that can help with day-to-day life. The typical definition boils down to the 10% of psychoactive dose. Most people microdose every few days for several weeks or months. It works best with other lifestyle changes that improve one daily habits. Wow.
Yeah, what are the benefits of microdosing?
What are the benefits of microdosing?
Microdosing mescaline offers similar benefits to LSD and magic mushrooms. Most people commonly microdose for the following reasons: boosting creativity, facilitate productive flow states, improved mood, bolster empathy and connection with others, achieve deeper states of meditation and self-awareness, establish new habits and cognitive patterns. However, is the practice effective? There's no science to back it up yet, but plenty of anecdotal evidence suggests that it is. A recent study in the Harm Reduction Journal sought to figure out why people took microdoses of psychedelics like mescaline. In this study, 278 respondents taking a variety of psychedelics responded to a survey with their personal testimony. These questions regarded the topic of what microdosing helps with them, in their opinion. The following is a list of the responses of these participants. It's important to keep in mind this is not scientific evaluation, rather self-reported benefits of the microdosing experience. So, improved mood, 26% reported that. That's a pretty good percentage. Better focus, 14.8, higher levels of creativity, 12.9, improvement in self-efficacy, efficacy. So 11% improvement. That's pretty wild. Increased energy, better sociability, higher cognitive ability, reduction in anxiety, visual, psychological enhancements, and other benefits, a reduction in other symptoms. So they're getting relief in so many different areas, and that was under 300 people who self-reported. That's pretty wild. So some seek out microdosing as a possible treatment for their attention, depression, and anxiety disorders, while there have been some anecdotal reports of success with this, it's vital that you never attempt this on your own. Just saying. So effects, what does microdosing mescaline feel like? If you're microdosing correctly, you shouldn't be feeling much of anything. Microdosing is mostly characterized by a lack of anxiety, a general sense of clarity, and a smoother overall demeanor. Generally, people feel calmer when microdosing and have an increased interest in life's activities, more energy, and more sociable attitude.
How much mescaline to take for a microdose? Changes different, be worn with the taste, not something you'll grow to love. Below is a breakdown of different types of mescaline out there and how to use them for a microdose. So microdose is the 1 gram, 1 to 2 grams, 5 to 10 grams for Peruvian, and 10 to 40 for pure. Microdosing mescaline isolate. So that must be the pure. So
Right.
mescaline isolate is one of the easiest ways to consume your mescaline microdose. This consists of small amounts of powder that you can easily put into a shot glass, shoot back with water or juice. Some also like the isolate because they can add it to their morning cup of coffee or smoothie. You can also make mescaline microdose capsules using raw isolate powder. If using this form of mescaline, test a sample of the powder with the test kit. You ensure it's safe and pure. Microdosing San Pedro cacti. 1 to 2 grams. Huh. You want to tell us that?
Yeah, San Pedro grows very fast, but its mescaline content is much more comparable to peyote or Peruvian torch. San Pedro is legal to buy, own, and grow, though it's still technically illegal to consume. These facts make it a popular option. The mescaline content is lower than peyote. You'll need to take about twice as much to get the same effects. In the case of microdoses, this isn't much of a problem. You can take San Pedro cacti powder by filling it in capsules or mixing the bitter powder with some water or juice. Microdosing peyote. So again, you need 1 gram of peyote. Peyote is by far the most popular mescaline-containing cacti. While concentrations vary from cactus to cactus, peyote is much stronger than the other options by volume. Popularity is a double-edged sword, however. As most people find interest in mescaline and turn to peyote, it's at risk of endangerment. For this reason, and because it's illegal to buy or own, we recommend you either take isolate or San Pedro cactus as your main source of mescaline. You can take the peyote by eating small chunks of it, of the dried buttons, or mixing the powder into water or juice. So again, the down the hatch and chase it with something tasty.
So the Peruvian torch, you had 5 to 15 grams. Many of us love this cacti for the ability to grow fast, but you also, at the very least, mescaline compared to other options. That said, it's a legal cactus to own and grow, but still illegal to consume. So how often should you microdose mescaline? As far as most common options go, they include dose, break, a week on, week off, and work days only, 5, and then 2 off. The main thing is to keep in mind that it's important to take breaks. Most psychedelics build up tolerance quickly, so it's important to give enough time for the drug to leave your system fully or miss out on its benefits. Huh.
Yeah. So safety, microdosing mescaline. There's no reason to expect mescaline to be dangerous at any level of regular use. Scientific reporting suggests a similar safety profile to other psychedelics, noting particularly low potential for overdose or abuse. The L50 of mescaline, or the amount you would have to consume for half of the people doing so to die, would be incredibly difficult for anyone to be able to consume. No exact LD50 has been identified with mescaline, but the studies in humans involving doses as high as 800 milligrams were tolerated very well. To put into perspective, the standard psychedelic microdose of mescaline is 200 milligrams, or of psychedelic dose is 200 milligrams, whereas a microdose is 20 milligrams. So, I mean, if they're taking 800 milligrams and doing okay, then I think we're safe. While it's unlikely for someone to overdose on mescaline, it doesn't mean that it's perfectly safe, as we know. All psychedelics can carry some potential side effects. Most are cognitive anxiety, paranoia, but some physical vasoconstriction and increased heart rate, which would be why they don't want you to take it if you're on heart medication. Typically, the physical impacts of mescaline is no more serious than exercise, increased heart rate, blood pressure elevation. Though, again, people with heart issues should, proceed with caution if they're going to. Other risks when it comes to psychedelics concerns mental health. Research is unclear on the impacts, but mescaline could worsen symptoms of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or other pre-existing mental health disorders. It's, in very rare cases, has led to a condition called hallucinogen persisting perception disorder, which involves hallucinations lasting weeks or months or even years after the experience. These are very unlikely when used in microdoses.
Yeah, so this article is getting kind of long and I want to skim it a little, but go check out tripsitter.com, microdosing, and mescaline. And then you would be able to check out that beautiful article on that. There's different medications you got to watch out for and whatnot. That pretty much brought us to medication time.
It is time to pay some bills, so stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors, and we'll be back with more articles that BUFO has chosen, making mainstream media news.
We'll be back here in a bit here on the Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network. About 4 minutes and 17 seconds.
Psychedelic Tuesdays on NOK Network. Tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Psychedelic Reporters. Bufo Alvarius is scouring the news wires for stories being reported in the mainstream media on the psychedelic front and passing them on to Hobbies, Puppets, and Tarra Simpson so they can bring them to you, our listeners, in this 60-minute video news podcast. Tuesday evening news. Join us for Tuesday evening news each week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for all your news and information from the world of psychedelic medicine. Follow and subscribe to NOK Network on our webpage, social media, and streaming sites, including YouTube and Rumble.
Peace, news, and views on NOK Network. Patients everywhere advocating cannabis evolution with Kim Cooper and Sir Steve O. Joint hosts interview people in the grassroots and corporate cannabis space across North America and beyond. Sit down with patients, entrepreneurs, lawyers, doctors, and others share their journey with this medicinal plant. So join us for Peace, News, and Views. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where all consumption is medicinal consumption on NOKnetwork.com. Follow and subscribe to NOK Network on social media and streaming sites including Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble.
Put it all away for 30 minutes a day on IWK. The IWK 710 Daily Sesh is a virtual gathering where consumers meet up for a toke and some laughs at 7 p.m. Eastern nightly. Originally aired on InfoWikim social media pages, the IWK 710 Daily Sesh is now also podcasted on NOK Network. Rotating joint hosts bring you a variety of content during this 30-minute virtual smoke sesh. Take a break from the stresses in life and put it all away for 30 minutes a day on IWK. Podcasted nightly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on NOK Network.
Hey, dudes and dudettes. Enjoy the show, man.
And we are back from our medication session live on NOK Network on Psychedelic Reporters.
And we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. This next article is brought to us from the streets of Toronto. And this is a really neat article written by Ron Johnson. Illegal dispensaries operating across the city, this time with magic mushrooms.
Yes, so Toronto is only about an hour from where I live. So this is really cool because it's happening all over Canada right now. But when the first illegal magic mushroom dispensaries opened in Toronto, it was a novelty. Then the second opened with more planned. And now the city finds itself back where it was more than 5 years ago when illegal or gray market cannabis dispensaries were opening up at breakneck speeds ahead of potential legalization. In the funky early days of the march to cannabis legislation or legalization, Toronto Police Services were kept busy closing down establishments that would open up again as soon as the coast was clear. And that seems to be the case with mushroom modus operandi as well. Fun Guys, which has opened up a shop in Parkdale, amongst others, is one of the mushroom dispensaries operating in town. And according to someone who answered the shop's phone and identified as the owner who chose to remain anonymous, business is good. We're planning to open up about 5 stores and we're already doing online, he said over the phone when we first chatted last fall. And we're doing 24-hour delivery. Fun Guys stocks a full line of magic mushrooms, including dried mushrooms, microdose capsules, tinctures, chocolates, nootropics, teas, jellies, and more. The shop sources products from British Columbia and offers online sales and deliveries as well. The range is $25 to $190, said the owner. Magic mushrooms, according to the federal government of Canada, are mushrooms that contain hallucinogens, usually psilocybin and psilocybin. And according to a spokesperson for the Toronto Police, they are absolutely illegal.
Police enforce the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act and psilocybin. Under the Act, anyone selling or producing psilocybin would require an exemption from Health Canada, and without that would be committed an offense and could be subject to the charge of the CDSA. Read statement from Toronto Police. In addition, TPS is shutting down establishments of this nature as they are made aware of them. Police induced the Controlled Substances and Drugs Act as a psilocybin is an illegal substances under the Act. Anyone selling or producing psilocybin would require an exemption from the Health Canada, and without that would be committing an offense and could be subject to the charges under the CDSA. Read a statement. When a report is made in Toronto Police about an illegal dispensary, it is investigated, as any decision to proceed with charges is based on the findings of that investigation. We also work with the city, as brick and mortar shops could also be subject to by-law permit and zoning infractions.
But it isn't quite that easy. On the federal government's website, it's made clear that the production, sale, and possession of magic mushrooms is illegal in Canada, but also noted that there's an increasing interest in the potential therapeutic uses of magic mushrooms and of psilocybin, one of the active ingredients in magic mushrooms. While clinical trials with psilocybin have shown promising results at this time, there's no active therapeutic products containing psilocybin in Canada or elsewhere. Clinical trials are the most appropriate and effective way to advance research with unapproved drugs such as psilocybin, while protecting public health and safety of patients. But then, like with cannabis, there are loopholes that could keep growing. Health Canada outlines a narrowing pathway to legally obtaining unauthorized drugs like psilocybin. Patients suffering with mental health disorders should discuss potential treatment options with their healthcare providers. In some circumstances, with the support of regulated healthcare practitioner, it may be possible for individuals to legally access psilocybin through special access program via healthcare practitioner or by obtaining an individual exemption. The government describes an individual exemption as possible in relation to a medical condition and should include a letter of support from a medical practitioner. This letter should demonstrate that they have pursued other available legal routes to access psilocybin or demonstrate that these routes are not available or suitable to them, and provide diagnosis, prognosis of the patient's medical illness, clinical evidence of their psilocybin use if applicable, and details of their recommended treatment regime. Lawyer Paul Lewin, who bills himself as a cannabis lawyer on his website, says the system is outdated, and that's one of the reasons why people are turning to these illegal dispensaries. I think that part of what's driving these stores is the fact that the access is flawed, he said, explaining, for example, that the special access exemption requires a medical practitioner to take responsibility for the entire situation. It's a very large application in which the doctor has to assume liability for the whole process. Oh. What the heck's going on here? I just lost the article.
Yeah. Okay. So where were we on the article? My bad.
It's okay. So we are talking right here about the exemption that people can get, that Paul Lewin, who's the cannabis lawyer, is talking about how the doctors have to assume liability with the whole process. So many doctors are reluctant to do so. While he also explained that it puts a final decision as to whether a person should get access in the hands of the government bureaucrat and not with a medical doctor. The whole idea of a bureaucrat deciding what's best for people and deciding what therapies you have tried before you get access to this therapy which is really widely established, and which has great safety profile. Safety isn't the issue, Lewin explained. Lewin said he is actually involved with a number of lawyers in a court case on this front, which involves a terminally ill person who has been stopped from obtaining a second SAP, which is Special Access Program. He would be eligible for MAID, medical assistance in dying. He could end his life, but he can't try psilocybin. He added, it's pretty stupid. That's the SAP. Back at the Fun Guys, the owner explained how the process works at his store.
There's a waiver there. You're going to be filling out to self-diagnose yourself, and we are only selling for medical purposes and not recreational, he said. And we also do need to see photo ID. The owner said they are prepared for seemingly inevitable police raid to come, and said if it gets shut down, he would just open up again. This is a medical protest we're doing. We're not going to go down without a fight, he said. So these fellows that closed down will open the next day, then try to kick us out. We'll open up the next day, and this is something that we believe in, and I'm going to went all in for again, if I'm just going to do it for the people. He said for everyone should do their own research and figure out what it's about. I want people to go out and do their own research before consuming psilocybin, he said. I feel that's the safest and the fairest way. not just like these doctors that prescribe you medications and tell you need to take it. You are pretty much attached. You also added to the fun guys are planning some charity events, and there will be a lot going on with marketing to get the word on the benefits of the psilocybin. Outside the illegal dispensaries world, there's a lot of activities and official research into the benefits of psilocybin right now. Some right here in Toronto. In 2022, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health has just been awarded Canada's first federal grant to study psilocybin, the chemical component of magic mushrooms, with regard to its effect on treatment-resistant depression. There has been a growing interest and body of knowledge regarding the use of psychedelic drugs for the treatment of mental illness and addictions. And Dr. Ishrat Hussain, head of the CAM, the Clinical Trials Unit and principal investigation of the new CAM study. Previous clinical trials have reported large and sustained antidepressant effects of psilocybin when combined with intensive psychotherapy. If this study shows that psilocybin is still effective at treating depression without inducing the psychedelic state, it could remove the time-intensive and costly need for psychological support during the treatment. This would make the treatment more accessible both for healthcare funds and for those seeking treatment. Wow.
Yeah, so CAMH researchers have already led studies involving psilocybin and ketamine. Recently, CAMH was the only Canadian site for the world's largest clinical trials of psilocybin in mental health to date. This study was instrumental in providing further support for psilocybin as an emerging treatment for depression. There are also psychedelic study research program at the University of Toronto in Mississauga, which is currently conducting clinical trials of microdosing using very low doses of psilocybin. Rowan Levy, executive chairman of Field Trip Health, a psychedelic therapy clinic in Toronto, explained in the past article for Streets of Toronto that he thinks anything that can be achieved in conventional therapy can be achieved faster through psychedelic therapies, including mushrooms. Those conventional approaches take a lot longer, where you can go a lot deeper, further, and faster when you pair therapy with psychedelics, Levy explained. As microdosing and psychedelic therapy with mushrooms becomes more mainstream in Canada, some suggest it's only a matter of time before it goes the way of cannabis and is legalized. We know where the fun guys stand. I think that it will be legalized in about 3 years, and it's going to be normalized within a year. And I think a lot of people are going to be microdosing daily, and it's going to be taking over the pharmaceuticals very shortly. Lewis said the biggest impediments is politics. Probably like cannabis, politicians who are worried that it might offend some or think it might not be a vote getter will wait, he said. I think it's a vote getter, though. I think polls seem to suggest that medical use is widely accepted and that it's probably the biggest part. Fonda Ballum.
Oh, that's the restaurant.
Oh, it just jumps to the next one. That's hilarious. Yeah. So, yeah.
So yeah, and thank you for joining us here on NOK Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network, and for tuning in to our video podcast and NOK Network's Rumble and YouTube pages, as well as other social media sites.
We really hope you enjoyed our update on mainstream coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to our sponsors and to my joint host, Tarra Simpson, and to Bufo Alvarius for choosing the stories, and to you, our listeners, for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesday. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way out. Good night.
Bye.
I gotta hit the commercial. There it is. I'm looking out
myself reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of